Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Welcome to another week of Wales Darby webinars. We got myself, Rick Koester, today. We got Anthony Tassi in the background. He's going to be answering any questions that you guys throw at us. Today's going to be similar to the first week. If you were with us when we did our installation webinar, it was more of an open, I guess like an open session where it's going to be a conversation. You know, we're going to talk about troubleshooting. We do it every day, whether it's mini splits, boilers, you know, whatever you may be working on. You know, if there's a complaint come in or some kind of, you know, problem, you know, troubleshooting's involved. So today, hopefully, you know, this is all about accountability too. You know, we have a lot of resources. I think I want to say we're up to 9 accounted. So we have tons of different channels, which we're going to kind of go over today, discuss, as well as maybe give you some tips here. We got a unit behind me here. We're going to go a little hands-on like we did in week 1. You know, again, this is open channel, open discussion. You know, any questions, any challenges you guys are having today or in the field, you know, we're here to discuss them, you know, so keep those questions going. I see Anthony joining us from Queens this morning. Thanks for throwing that in the chat. You know, if you don't mind, you know, where are you calling from today or where you're watching us from today? You know, whether it's your truck, your home, your office, wherever it may be. We got some handouts for you today too. If you look in your little menu there, there's I think 5 handouts Anthony mentioned there. So we got some good stuff. We're going to review a couple of them. We're going to go through a lot of the main pages that Fujitsu has just put out over the last year or so that really I don't think we have enough awareness on. So we're going to go through them and show you how that's going to make your job a little bit easier, make the troubleshooting process a little bit quicker for you, save you some time, and save you some money there as well. So let me grab this guy, make sure this is working. We got a lot of moving pieces behind the scenes today. We're gonna have some fun. So again, you know, really we're gonna go through some of those resources. We are gonna give you some tips here. You know, when we talk about, you know, mini splits in general, they're very intimidating, you know, when you walk up to them. You know, if you have a problem where you don't have an error code, you know, we get phone calls all day long, right? You know, I got this error code, what do I do, right? And we like talking to you guys, but at this point, you know, if you're coming through training and you've got those resources in your hands, you should know the directions and which way to go and what problems are causing what, you know, so we're going to help you with that today. So let's get started. I did throw up, actually, I'm going to back that up real quick. I'm going to promote ourselves real quick. But if you guys are not following, obviously these webinars we're doing, we record these, they go on our website, you guys have access to them. We will have a new website up, so it'll be a little easier to get to. But if you see on the screen there, we got our Instagrams there. You know, social media is a big part of what we do today. You know, if you're not following Wales Darby's Instagram, you know, you'll see all the current events that we are involved with, whether it's trade shows, you know, distributor events, you know, even the webinars that we're doing today, we promote them a couple days before, so it's a little bit easier to get those links. You know, myself and Anthony also on there, you know, we like to promote you guys, you know, we'd like to see what you guys are doing, your jobs, stuff like that. We take a lot of job site photos, stuff, you know, all kinds of fun stuff. So definitely hit us up. We'd be happy to share some stuff with you there too. So, all right, let's get this thing going. So like I said, the purpose of today is really accountability. Go through those little avenues, you know, show you all the proper places to start. You know, I get a lot of these calls, and I just had one yesterday. You know, I'm getting a picture of gauges, getting an error code sent to me. What do I do now, right? So we're going to show you what you're going to do now, because really, I mean, I'm going to throw a couple of these resources up here now as I'm talking, but you guys might be familiar with some stuff called like the mobile technician app, right? This is something that everybody should have on their phone at this point. If you're servicing Fujitsu, doing installations, whatever it may be, you know, that app right there alone is good as your first starting point in my eyes. You know, when you guys call and we get the phone call coming in, you know, you tell me an error code, the first thing I'm doing, usually I'm driving, so it's probably not a good thing, but usually I'm opening that app and I'm throwing in my error code there, model number of indoor and outdoor, and we throw that error in there, and it's going to give us a direction. It's going to tell us where we have to start, right? So that's a good place there. We do have some paper, you know, a lot of us, we don't like, you know, maybe the app doesn't work on our phone for whatever reason. We do have these resources that are downloadable. They are in your handouts today too. I think I removed one just to add something else in there, but the troubleshooting guide, I'll show you where to get that. The service tips, again, paper is never replaced. You know, you might find yourself in a field where self-service, you know, is not available, and that's where paper is going to come in. Yet Today, with all the towers up there, it's becoming less likely that you're going to not have cell service. I have not been on many jobs in the last couple of years where service was an issue. There's always some way to get on somebody's Wi-Fi or whatever and get that going. So we got the paper, we got some websites, we got a couple apps. We're not going to go in detail with every single resource you see on the page here. I'm also missing a couple. You know, there's some phone numbers out there, right? You guys might be familiar with Fujitsu Tech Services. One complaint we hear all the time is the time it takes to get through. Right? There's no reason for you guys to be on hold for 2 hours or an hour and a half, sitting in the truck going through Facebook and Instagram. We don't mind interacting with you there, but that's not the time to do that. You know, if you have 2 hours to wait for tech services, we should be going through the motions and start testing all the components, or at least getting, you know, some information, right? So we're going to show you how to make that a little bit easier for you. So you got tech services. You also got myself, Anthony, Jim, John, and Rob on the New Jersey side, right? There's 5 of us in our contractor services department here. So we're always, you know, whether if we're in training, yeah, we can't answer the phone. But if you send us a text or leave us a voicemail, we're pretty good at getting back to you in a decent amount of time. You also have your distributor TSAs, right? So on the island now, we have, you know, a majority of our distributors at this point do have some TSAs that are available to help you guys. They have the same abilities as myself, Anthony, Jim, John, and Rob, right? They can create tickets for you. They can get parts breakdown. They can troubleshoot the jobs, you know, so, you know, use them as well. They are a resource, and maybe we're not familiar that they are there, but they're there to help too. So we're going to go over a couple of the resources now. You know, I wanted to start with, you know, the Connect page, right? The Connect page is something that is, how long are we talking now, Connect?
Oh, we coded.
We're talking maybe a year.
Yeah.
Maybe a year, I'm going to say. You know, and there's been some hiccups there. And when most people see the Connect page, you know, they think, oh, I got to log in and all this other stuff like in the past, and we don't. You know, yes, there is some login once we get in behind the scenes there. There might be some hiccups and stuff like that, but for what you need in the field as troubleshooting goes, you don't need to log in, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'm gonna disappear for a second here. We're gonna bring up the website. This is the face of Connect, right? So everybody should be seeing that now. Yep, good. So this is the face of Connect, right? And this is a huge resource. You know, I spent a lot of time on it. It's been changing daily. There's been updates. They've been working very hard at getting this to where it is now. And I think I have no issues at this point. You know, there's maybe some little hiccups here on certain models, and that's going to happen. But for the most part, everything that you're touching current today is here and it's available, right? So how do we use this page? Well, first of all, there's a lot of different information, a lot of different links that'll get you some good information here. I'm going to go through. Should be able to see the mouse, I'm hoping. Yeah, good. So if you just follow the mouse here, if you're on a phone, it might be a little difficult, but this is recorded, so you'll have access to it later on, kind of go through it again. But under the tech support, that's where you're going to find your help center. We call it the help center now. It's infinite support. We're going to go over that in a few minutes and kind of go through, you know, an error code and show you those steps and how to do your troubleshooting and all that stuff. You do have access to the app. So if you do not have it on your phone right now, you know, there you go. Click on that. You're going to get some QR codes, whether it's an Apple device, Android, you'll be able to download that. You know, you can see underneath there is warranty and registration. So if you're that person and you're there looking up a warranty, you don't have to call us or wait on hold to get warranty information. You can do that yourself. You know, product registration, you can do it right from here as well. If we move all the tools and resources, here you're going to find some more information. That's where you get all your brochures, the rebate finder, but the Infinite Comfort Pro, you know, if you're a technician out there in the field, this is a sales-driven app, but at the same time, this app alone, you can build the system that's in front of you. Right? When you're on a job and you have a refrigerant issue and you need to know if my line sets are in, you know, the proper specs, minimums and maximums and all of that, you have the ability to add in units that you have in front of you, make some rough, you know, measurements, you know, put in those dimensions. It's going to tell you if your line sets are within spec. If they're not, you're going to get a little red box that says no. It's going to tell you what the minimums and maximums are. You know, you're going to be able to look up the information to see what your pre-charge is and how much I got to weigh in. You know, God forbid we got to do that, right? So all of that information is built into that app. So if you don't have it, click on that, download it, and start playing around with it. It's very easy to use. And then you got all your programs over here. Another spot that I don't think we show off enough is this contact us, right? So if you're looking to get in contact with somebody at Fujitsu and you're not really sure who, click on that contact us page and you're going to get some good direction here, right? So here's your tech support stuff. Here's your training, right? You're looking for training at Fujitsu. Here's your tech support, email, right? So we do have a tech support email. If you have a question or something, service HVAC at fujitsugeneral.com in the middle there. Warranty issues, registration issues, marketing, if you're looking to do something there. All that information here is here, as well as all your phone numbers. So that's a good page, and I think we forget about it sometimes. So I'm going to back up real quick. The next important, I guess, part of this website is going to be the search bar at the top, right? Because this is where you're going to find all the information pertaining to the unit you're using. And today we're going to use the example of the machine behind me, and that's a multi-zone 24. So again, we need to know all the letters, numbers, all of that stuff. So you'll see as I start to enter some of this information, it's going to start to populate, right? So if I start to get closer, we're going to get limited on the amount of machines we have. But right down there at the bottom is going to be our multi-zone AOU 24 RLXFZ. We click on that, and that's going to give us now access to pretty much everything you had before that, but you had to log into. So if you didn't have access to a portal account, you didn't have a personal account yourself, you really didn't have this information at your fingertips. Well, today you don't need to log in. You just go to connect.fujitsugeneral.com. I'll have the website up, towards the end. We're going to review them, so you can take a screenshot of that. But go to Connect, click on it, or enter your model number, and there you go, is all your manuals, right? So you see there's a couple here. We got the design and technical manual, right? This is everything that pertains to not just the 24. You might find that it has the 18 in it, or there's a 36 in it. This could be a manual that's up to 400 pages long. There's a ton of information in here. Do you need to know it all? Absolutely not. But if you're looking for something specific, it's going to be in that manual. Your installation manual, right? This is something we see the day on the job. We usually take it out of the box, throw it to the side, and we never look at it again, right? So there's a lot of information in there you're going to need. Combinations, right? What indoor units can I put on this outdoor unit? You're going to find that there. And then my two favorite are the service instructions, which is really, if you need to know, and this is the way I was taught, and this is what made me probably a better tech than what I thought I could have done on my own, was just learning how a machine is supposed to operate. You can't troubleshoot and figure out if it's doing something wrong if you don't even know how it's supposed to operate from the beginning, right? So the service instructions are really going to basically break down every mode, every function of the fan, the compressor. It's going to tell you at what temperatures and how high it's supposed to ramp up. These are all good little things. And yes, some of these are crossed over to different models, and for the most part, but there might be some modes or features here that are specific to one unit. So if you're working on that piece of machinery and you want to know if this is working properly, I don't have an error code, the fan's really not ramping up. Well, what is it supposed to ramp up to? Let's go up there and see if it's supposed to be at full speed on a 70-degree day. Probably not. So you're going to get a lot of that information in service instructions, as well as the troubleshooting side. So when we talk about the mobile technician app, right, we get PDFs that are generated with troubleshooting steps. All of those PDFs are taken right out of the service instructions. So if you're having problems with the app, just find the model, click on the service instructions, find your error code. It's going to tell you what page to look down on, and it's going to have that full PDF for you. So that's a great resource right there. It's also going to give you some parts breakdown. Service manual is more of a parts breakdown, and so it's also a lot of diagrams. If you're good at schematics and following, wiring, you want to know how many volts is supposed to go to this thermistor. They have the board laid out there with all the voltages and all the ohms and what position this switch is supposed to be in, how many ohms am I supposed to get through my coil and my four-way valve, what is my compressor supposed to ohm out at. There's one page just with all of that information on it, and then I'll submit it, right? So I'm looking to see what voltage or what breaker I need, stuff like that. Just a lot of features, benefits, stuff like that. That's going to be your submittal there. But for the most part, your service manual, your service instructions, installation manual. We don't see it on this particular one. It's typically with the indoor units, but in the indoors, you're going to have an operation manual. Right? That operation manual is meant for your homeowner. Right? You take the installation manual with you when you leave the job. We leave the operation manual behind. There is a ton of great information in there that'll help you understand what Fujitsu is doing, or at least understand what all of those features on that remote control are going to be able to do. Right? I can't tell you how many service calls or how many calls to just myself, Anthony, Jim, John, and Rob, our department here, how many calls could be saved if somebody just read the operation manual. What louver positions can I go into in a cooling mode compared to a heating mode or a fan mode or dry mode, right? All of that information's there. We're leaving that behind with the homeowner. They're probably not going to read it. But, I ask guys all the time in training, what happens in defrost mode? What's the maximum time that thing's going to run, right? If these things are being bought today, not so much for air conditioning, but for a heat pump operation, right? If defrost is going to be a big part of that operation, right? If I'm leaving a house and this thing's going to start flashing a light and stop producing heat, I can almost guarantee you, if you don't explain that to a homeowner, that's a service call. That's the loss of money out of your pocket by having to go out there and explain to them, or hopefully you know what it is. A lot of times we get the call, hey, I got this thing flashing, but it's not an error code. Yeah, it's in defrost, or it's in some other mode, right? Or maybe 2 units are in the wrong mode, right? So we got a lot of this information in an operation manual. We spend, I think, what do we count? 3 pages, I think, in the operation manual, and you'll know every single feature and benefit on that remote control.
It's easy reading.
Yeah, all of them are. So this is a great place to get all of this information.
It's job security too, so.
Absolutely, 100%.
Read it.
Yeah, don't read it. We need a job. So that's really the Connect website and navigating the actual manual side. Parts diagrams have been getting so much better. I've had a lot of complaints in the last couple of months. Hey, my guy diagnosed the problem. We're trying to figure out what part I need. It's not working. Well, we always had that information in the service manual, but now when we get into parts diagrams, and I'll click on this here, and a little guy's going to pop up, and it kind of goes through automatically. You can use the arrows left and right to navigate it a little bit. It can be a pain in the neck because I don't know if you can turn off that auto scroll or whatever you want to call it. But when I'm looking around here and I'm looking at different parts and stuff like that, you can see, I'm going to go back to this guy. Here's a service valve 24, right? So these bubbles are now matched up on the actual parts breakdown. So if I close this and we go down and click on this parts list underneath the unit, we're going to get a drop-down menu. Here's all my bubble numbers, right? Here's my part numbers and a description. I can't order the part from this website, but I can collect the information to get it to my distributor now so I can get the right part. So I'm going to scroll all the way down, and we're looking for 24. It's going to be at the bottom here. Wait, show I prepared. I could have picked 30. Got me to the bottom. So here's 24. Here's my part number. I can get that to my distributor to get that 3-way valve. And then if I actually click on the description, maybe I got the part in front of me that's bad and I'm trying to make sure it's the right one. Here you go. We got a little picture. So not every part is uploaded at this point. That's something I'm working very hard, and they're doing a great job, getting all of this stuff uploaded. They're literally doing it piece by piece, moving things over. So, you will get some images there, boards, stuff like that. But again, there's my part number, my 3-way valve, and we're good to go. So I hope that helped with Connect. And again, I'll have the website up there later on, the actual address for you. There's also a handout, and I'm going to mention this probably a dozen times. There's something that we put together here at Wales Darby. We call it like our 1 page, our resource page. And basically, it's the front page of Connect on one side. It's our help center front page on the other. And there's a bunch of QR codes. I want to say there's 12 in total, 6 on each side. One of them's more troubleshooting side, where it's going to get you direct links to the websites. It's going to get you direct links to the PDFs, to the catalog, to the apps, right? Everything that you need that we have today, even a training request. If there's something that you're not strong with and you're looking for training, click on it, enter some information. It'll go directly to myself. We can now look at it, reach out to you, and set up some training for you. So a lot of good stuff there. The other side is more pertaining to the sales side of things. Again, you'll find a full line catalog. There's some nice little Snapchat, filter things on there that you can actually go into a homeowner's house and put a unit on a wall.
We'll still see the website, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, still got the website.
And where do we find this handout with all the QR codes?
In your handouts.
Oh, where is that? Where do you find that?
In your menu.
Oh, in the menu.
Sidebar.
Handouts.
Sidebar. Handouts.
Excellent.
We're going to mention that probably 30 times in the next half hour. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So download it, please. So next, we're going to go take a look at that help center. So again, if we're on Connect, we got some information from here through the manuals. We downloaded a couple things. Now we're looking for troubleshooting tips, right? So when I click on the Infinite Support, it's going to bring us to another page. There's a new look to this page. So somebody can, we'll have a little trivia, see if everybody's sharp, if anybody's been on this, but there's some things that are different. Somebody can throw it out there in the chat, see how good you are. Give you a little hint logo, but let me know if somebody responds to that. But this is a new page, right? So this has been around, I'm 5 years Darby, so this came out probably just after I got here. So we're talking 4 years plus at this point, and I still run across pretty much everybody I talk to on a daily basis that doesn't even know this exists. What I've been doing, and some of you guys might even be on the call, you know, when there's an issue or you guys give me some kind of information as far as an error code and how do I actually troubleshoot this, what I've been doing is I've been going to this help center. I go to the page you need to be on and I send you a link. The next text I get back from you guys is, hey, it's asking me to log in, and that's 100% correct. Take the 2 seconds, create an account so you can log in. The benefits of doing that is once your profile's in place, you know, you call Fujitsu, talk to a tech agent and get a ticket number, or even if we create a ticket number for you, you can follow that information. If you left the job and you forgot what part numbers he gave you, you forgot to write them down, or you lost the paper, right? You have the ability now to go on to your help center profile and go look at those tickets that you're a part of, you know? So now you can go and see the full conversation. And there's a lot of information we can put into it, pictures, stuff like that. So there's a huge benefit to being to this page. But this is what you guys, you know, again, that complaint. I'm sitting on hold for 2 hours, right? We're waiting for somebody to call us back. We don't know who that somebody is. We don't know if they can help us, but we're going to sit in the truck and we're going to wait. You know, that's a waste of your time. That's a waste of your company's time. That's a waste of the homeowner's time, right? We have this page. This is what you're waiting 2 hours for. Is for somebody to go on this page, go to the steps of troubleshooting a communication error. You know, we can do this on our own, and that's what we're going to show you today. So as you can see here on the main page, again, we have a search bar. So if you're looking for something specific, you can type it in there. It'll pull up some documents. You'll notice something here, you know, this middle area here. This is really the different series of Fujitsu at this point, right? So we got our V and J series, Ventacity. That's our commercial, you know, division. In the middle, we got our H series, right? So that's our residential. And then we have our unitary, as well as Westinghouse down below. So we get some information. We do have, before I get off of this, again, I'm not even into the page yet, and you can see there's a ton of information on here. Zoom map, you know, that's another resource I forgot about. I'm up to 10 at this point. You know, I got a communication error. I can click on this link right here, and it's bring me right to troubleshooting. We're going to get there, and that's what we're going to go over. But there's a communication error. Here's my PDF of my fold-up troubleshooting guide. That's going to give me refrigerant charge information, line set information. Pretty much some of the stuff that you see in the app is right here on this little troubleshooting guide. So you guys have access there. Installation checklist, startup sheets. Again, there's just tons and tons of information. So,
Rick, how do we get here again?
We go to fujitsugeneral.zendesk.com. Again, it's a QR on your handout. It's also going to be on a screen in probably about 20 minutes.
It's also in the Connect.
It's also on Connect, right?
Infinite service.
Infinite support.
Support, thank you.
So again, you know, we had the manuals. We just went through the manuals. Again, we come to another page, and there's a lot of information that crosses over, right? So it's all of these things, all these resources are loaded up for you guys. You know, we got retired manuals here. So if you're working on something that we haven't seen in 20 years, it might be here. If you're looking for something more current, then you're going to have it here. We got 51 different systems now that are current. Right? We got 100 systems over here that are retired. So tons of info. We're going to go through this in a second. So these are troubleshooting by individual error codes. Videos, I'm going to make a couple points on this today, but the videos is something that has helped, you know, it's helped me, you know, watching what Juan Perez did a lot of these videos, but If you've never pulled apart, a chassis before, we're going to do that in a few minutes here. We're going to pull the chassis out of this unit behind me, show you a couple little tips on changing boards, make your life a hell of a lot easier. Service tips, right? So this is, you guys have the PDF. These are individual PDFs. You can save these. Service bulletins is another one. Look at that. Look at the first one on that. Flare fitting leak prevention. That's a good one. We can talk about that all day. Disassembly instructions. If you never pulled apart a unit before, again, how often are you going to have to get into a unit and pull it apart? Not that often. So when you do it, whether you've done it before, and it's been 8 months or a year, and you're not going to remember every screw that's going to come out of that, or how do I get to this drain pump, or whatever it is. Well, these are little PDFs where they've actually taken a step-by-step photo shoot of, and identified every screw, every harness, every zip tie, everything that's got to get removed to remove something, right? To pull it apart. So again, great information. So let's go through. You'll see there's a star next to it. The ones that have stars are ones that are visited frequently, right? So communication error. What is a communication error, right? We typically see this. It's a loss of DC voltage, basically, communication from indoor to outdoor head, or indoor head to outdoor unit. Could go both ways. Could be the wire, could be the indoor unit, can be the outdoor unit, right? We need to figure out in our troubleshooting and diagnosis, where is this coming from? So this is your starting point. Right? I could have a communication error because of a condensate pump, that failed. So there's a lot of different things that we got to look at, but understanding what a communication error is first is really where you need to start. And this, again, this is what we're waiting hours sometimes for tech support, really to give us this information. So you have it at your fingertips. So you'll see here, communication error. This first bit of information is really just showing you how that error will come across the indoor unit, whether it's flashing lights, whether you have a wired remote control, maybe even an outdoor unit, right? It's got some flashing lights on the outdoor unit. So, it's just telling you how many flashes, which light, and stuff like that. So you can really confirm that that's the error you have. And then from here, and this might be a little difficult for you guys to see, especially if you're on a phone, but that's why, all right, we don't need all the details. I'd rather see you actually go to the website and take a look at this on your own. But these are 11 steps right now to basically troubleshooting a communication error, right? So we start at the basics, right? Pull the disconnect for 5 minutes, right? Reset that power. Let's see if the error reappears. It usually always reappears, right? At least in my world, it does. So if the error code reappears, we want to go through and figure out what, make sure our voltage is what? Our voltage should be between 187 to 253. That's a big range. Right? We play friendly anything inside of that. Anything over that, we're going to have some issues. We move down a little bit more. Now we got to figure out if is it an indoor or an outdoor problem. Well, we do that by doing a DC voltage test. I'm missing a word there. To determine if the problem is coming from outdoor, indoor, or field wiring. How do we do that? With power off at the disconnect, we're going to remove the number 3 field wire. I'll point that out in a few minutes. Right? So we got the 1, 2, 3 and ground running from indoor to outdoor. We're going to pull that number 3 wire off of the terminal. Let it hang in a breeze, make sure it's not touching anything metal. We're going to now plug that disconnect back in, and we're going to utilize our multimeter. We're going to check DC voltages. We're going to go from the terminal to ground and the wire to ground. We should see some sort of fluctuation. In fact, this tells me I should see fluctuating 60 to 130 volts DC. If I have a steady voltage of 40 volts, guess what? That's probably where my problem is. Now I know, okay, my outdoor unit at the terminal, I got a steady voltage. At my wire, I got fluctuating. That tells me my wire and my indoor unit are doing the right thing. They're communicating. My terminal, that's sitting there flat, it's not fluctuating. Well, I'm not getting communication from that board or from the outdoor unit. Now I got to go through the different components and figure out which ones are good and which ones are bad. All right, so we're going to kill power again. If this is steps 9 and 10, I'm basically saying, all right, if I don't have that fluctuating voltage on that wire, now I want to connect the wire and go back inside, and I want to see, is it the indoor head or is it the field wire, right? So we're trying to weed out where that problem is coming from. But once we get down to the bottom here, articles on troubleshooting boards and components can be found here. Each one of these little blue, links will bring you to that individual PDF, right? Each one of these PDFs is just identifying that one part. It's going to give you some testing. You need to have a meter that's going to be able to do that. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, right? But these are, we want to go through all of these. You want to write down your readings. This is where it becomes a little bit easier for you guys, you know, instead of waiting on hold. Again, make the phone call, get your information in there. While you're waiting, you can go through all of this. Now, but hopefully by the time you're finished doing all of this, then you do get the phone call back, and now you're just confirming your readings, right? That's not bad. I don't mind that. Now you're confirming. They might give you some part numbers. They created that ticket number for you, and you're on your way. That's the way it's supposed to be. Or what I tell my guys is take a picture of your readings, write them all down, circle the ones that you think are bad, take a picture of it, send it to me, right? Text it right to me. And now I can look at them and confirm which ones are good or bad. If I think there's something we need to retest, we'll get on the phone and we'll do it. Now we can actually weed out what's wrong. You know, I get, and I know Anthony's heard this, and I'm sure the rest of the group, you know, even the TSAs, you know, I hear when basically troubleshooting a Fujitsu, it's always 3 boards and a fan motor, right? That's every single time. It's 3 boards and a fan motor. Yeah, because tech services gets lazy too, because their problem is they don't have guys on the other end of that phone that have the right tools really, or the multimeter to diagnose the problem properly. So in many cases, yeah, they tell you just change all 3 boards and a fan motor because they know you're probably going to fix 99% of the jobs by changing all of that equipment. Do we need to? Well, that's up to you. That's up to you and your skills, right? You go through and you figure out, all right, no, that fan motor is good. That power board is fine, you know. I can't tell you the last time I changed a power board, you know, unless I had a direct short and I'm blowing breakers or something. But now it might be an active filter module, which we'll point out, and a communication board. Now we're down to 2 parts and fixing that same problem. So when you hear the 3 boards and a fan motor, you know, that's because we're not taking the time to diagnose the problem, right? So here you have all the different steps as well as all the testing PDFs to go through each component. So again, we'll talk tools in a few minutes, but you know, hopefully that helped you guys and at least opened your eyes to some of the information that we do have. We got any questions regarding the help center at all, Ed?
At this point, no. I was throwing some stuff out there asking how many components can they identify by eye.
Yeah.
It's great that we give them a description and a PDF. I guess if they click on it, it'll show a picture.
Yeah, well, even identifying the parts, you know, I do this a lot with guys out in the field, is when you open up that front door of the unit, and I can show that on camera in a few seconds when we turn that back on, but you got a diagram there that has names on the parts and pieces. We start identifying what's plugged into what, we can really identify, okay, what's my power board, like Anthony's saying, what's my active filter module, okay, where is this, where is that? You're gonna find all of that information right on the front door. You had it in your hand, you just threw it to the side. So that's another way, again, understand what you're working on beforehand.
100%. I think reading the description might be a hindrance.
Yeah.
I don't know what an AC TPM is. I'm not even gonna look for it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What does it do?
If you guys take a look too at the, what would that be? I guess the bottom right for most people. We got the support button down at the bottom corner. And every page, I'm gonna back up another page, it's gonna be there again. It'll pop up here, right? There it is. So what that's doing is I hit that support. It says, how can we help? And this is a good avenue. And like I said, if you're not gonna get on a phone, you know, I'm not the phone guy. I'm not gonna call tech support unless I'm stuck, right? But I can plug in some information here. How can I help you? My name is so-and-so. I work for this company. I'm on site. You use good keywords so they know, you know, you're not sitting in a truck having lunch, you know. I'm on site. I'm troubleshooting this unit. Here's my model and serial numbers. This is my error code. Put that information in there, hit enter, and it's going to send it into the queue. It's just as good as you calling and leaving a message, right? So you put all your information in here. You're already on the website here because you're going through the, you know, troubleshooting by error codes. So again, that's another little tab there where most people kind of skip right over.
And you said cell phone.
Cell phone.
Right.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this works on everything. I mean, the support button is good. If you put a general question out there and you're not on site, are you going to get a quick response? Typically, no. I'm not going to lie. You know, if you're asking, you know, what's the line set length, you know, for this model, right? That's a general question. You know, that's information you can find. You just skipped over all that information. That was in the manuals. That was in the full line catalog. That was on the app. You know, all of that information you bypassed to put in there. They're not as responsive to that. That's for getting in touch with tech support getting your questions, you're in trouble, you're on the site, and you want to save some time, that's a good source right there. All right, so I think we're good with the website there. We're going to take a look. I'm going to get rid of this. We should be back. There's our resources.
Looks good.
Looks good.
Not you.
Very good. So we discussed, yeah, and we're going to go through this unit behind me now. Let me we'll turn that back on. What we got going on there? So I'm doing good with questions, huh?
Yeah.
I got a couple things going. That's why I'm wondering what the heck I'm doing here.
You're laughing about what refrigeration might be the future.
Yeah, that's a big question right now. There's a lot of unknown, right? An R32 or whatever it is seems to be the go-to for most. Should be up and running now.
Yep,
but yeah, R32 seems to be the one that most people are using. I know Dakin's moving forward with. I don't know Fujitsu. I don't believe they've made a decision at this point. So
We have a ways to go.
yeah, we got a ways to worry about that. So again, there's your resources. Again, the apps, if you don't have them, you can get them in the handouts. Again, it's going to be there as a QR code. So definitely take a look at that stuff. Next, we're going to take a look at this outdoor unit that's behind me. And yes, it's difficult. You guys can't see the top. So I've kind of went out there and got some images here for you. But, typically this is, like we like to say, under the hood, right? So this is the top view of this machine behind me. We got a couple different components there. Some of them you might be able to identify, right? So this little box that's right above me, right? That's what Anthony just mentioned, right? The AC TPM, right? So that's modifying the power that's coming in. It's cleaning out any harmonics. That's what I call the filter module, right? So it's cleaning up that electricity. It's modifying. It's increasing the voltages that are being sent to our compressor, and some other components within the boards. So the guy in the middle here, and I'm not a good Vanna White, but here we go. So the middle board there, that's our inverter control board or our communication board, I like to call it, right? So that hosts a couple different major components for us. Number one, you can see that little chip hanging out there. I wonder if does this work today? Does this work behind?
I don't see it.
No, I guess not. All right, no presenter. But right in that top left corner, you'll see that little chip. There's a little notch in the board. That's a major component for us, right? We call that a diode bridge. That's what's converting AC voltage to DC. That's what's giving us our communication. So typically, if something happens to that one chip, that's what's going to give you that communication error, right? We lose DC voltage, we lose communication. We have nothing. If you've ever repowered up a unit, you'll hear those expansion valves kind of cycle, make some knocking noise, some clicking. That's all done with DC voltage. So if we repower a system, we don't hear any noises, we get that error code on there, we lost communication, we lost DC. So now that's one of the first components we're gonna go through. We're gonna test it out. There's also what we call an IPM, which is directly below it. You can see the two screws mounted into the heat sink, right? Our IPM is nothing more than a contactor. There's 6 switches in there by high-speed switching, open, closed. That's 3 windings we're feeding on our compressor, UVW. That's where we're simulating our 3-phase DC power, right? So that's where we get a lot of our efficiency from the system. And then that further board all the way down, this guy all the way, probably cut my arm off, but that's our power board, the skinny little guy there. And again, have I seen power boards go bad? Absolutely. They have some circuitry in there that monitors, the amperage. Basically, it makes sure the compressor is actually running, and it'll keep it running, once it senses that. If that goes bad, yeah, we could have to replace it. Typically, the only time I've seen that replaced is if we're blowing breakers. That's kind of my rule of thumb. It's not the end all, but that's kind of what I go by. But those 3 components are what make up pretty much this electrical chassis. I've heard Fujitsu call it the inverter box. So this is something that, one of the field techs from Fujitsu, Juan Perez, when he was out there, he got really good at rebuilding these things and bringing them out into the field when he had to meet you guys on site. And, I've kind of taken that and kind of run with it a little bit. We're working with some contractors now where, believe me, I've been out there, I've been there changing all these boards out there, trying to get things upside down and get your hands in places they're never meant to be fit, right? So what I like to show you today, and this is in the service instructions as well, is how to remove that chassis. You know, I always say, if we can diagnose, all right, these are bad, well, let me take this thing with me, bring it back to the shop, we'll get the boards we need, let's rebuild it and work like a human being, whether it be on a bench or the side of your truck or whatever it ends up being. You know, let's get this thing, you know, properly set, and now we just show back up, we drop this in place. I worked with a contractor who never replaced boards before on a Fujitsu system. So you can imagine, you know, I'm sure you remember your first time if you had to do it. If you haven't, it might be a challenge the first time. But imagine walking up to the unit and just pulling out the chassis and dropping in a new chassis, you know, and I'll be honest, you know, we did that. The unit was already open, top and front, but it took us about 17 minutes from pulling out the old, putting the new in, and powering the system up, right? So that's a huge time saver for you, and that's what we're trying to do. You know, that's a Wales Darby project we've been working on. But it's anything that we can do to help. So these chassis, they do come out relatively easily. You know, there's some stuff in the way that we got to look at, right? So we got some Molex plugs here, right? So that's these guys right in front of us. This is a 24, right? So we can hook up either 2 to 3 units to this machine. So we have, you know, our expansion valves. So this is our B and C valves. So we got to disconnect them. Our A valve on all of our multi-zone systems actually comes up into the board, right? So that's going to be in the front corner. That is the longest of the 3 valves, or 4, depending on the model you're working with. So we disconnect them. As you see in the picture, there's 2. We call them 2-way, 3-way valve thermistors. So this is what's really measuring your superheat and subcooling consistently. Oh, every single second, it's adjusting the system based on that superheat and subcooling. So the 2 3-way valves, you know, those are your valves on the side here, on the side of the machine that you hook up your line sets to, right? So they have thermistors there. They're going to sense the temperature of the pipe. I was on a job site 2 weeks ago, I want to call it, you know, where they took one piece of insulation and went over both copper pipes. So they were insulated, all the line sets basically in one piece of insulation. Just the heat transfer back and forth, right? It was one temperature. The machine was seeing that and seeing no difference, and it eventually would shut down. So this was something that, you know, I've been on the job sites multiple times with these guys, and it was the same problem. So there's a learning curve there, but you know, these thermistors could fail and they can do some funky things. The other problem with thermistors is they don't always have to give an error code, right? Remember, they're collecting information, right? Whether it's an indoor thermistor, an outdoor thermistor, it doesn't really make a difference. If it's giving some kind of information back, it could be completely wrong. It's still information, and a unit's going to react to it, right? It might react good or bad. You know, I've had indoor thermistors fail and tell me the heat exchanger and heat mode is 140, 150 degrees when it was 42 degrees, and the outdoor unit just would never come on because the thermistor's telling it it's hot already, right? So something like that, and that was a very expensive service call. You know, these guys went and replaced the whole outdoor unit, you know, and on their own. So little tips like that and understanding what a thermistor does is huge, right? So it's all intel. That's all it does. It gives the machine information. Unless that thing is open and it's just no information's coming back, you're typically not going to get an error code. So it's just something that might be challenging sometimes. The next set of plugs, and I've taken out a few of them here just for time's sake. We got some color-coded thermistors, as you can see in the picture there. We have our 4-way valve, right? So we got some pressure switches there. So we got 2 pressure switches. So a lot of safeties, a lot of redundancy here. Color-coded, again, it's very easy to find where these land on the board. You got a question, Aaron?
Yeah, just to cover it as far as all the parts, they're not universal. They're
Correct.
specific to model.
Yeah, absolutely.
Serial numbers are important to have.
Yeah, we need to know, and that's where those model numbers, right? So a difference between a 1 at the end, you know, we have our 36 multi-zone system. It's an AOU 36 RLX FZ1 at this point. Not too long ago, we didn't have the 1 model, right? So if you tell me I got a 36 multi-zone, well, that could pertain to 3 different units right now, right? So I need to know that full model number is really what Anthony's saying there is, you know, we need to know because, yeah, the thermistors on one is probably not going to fit the next. You know, it's not always like that, but maybe not that specific model, but for many others it is. So we get rid of those Molexes there, all those different connections there. We disconnect them. We got our compressor, which I've taken the leisure just again for time, disconnected that. You know, always take pictures too. You know, We do have the diagrams, and again, I can show that. Hopefully it shows up decent. Not too bad.
Nope.
But you got your diagram there. Should focus in a little bit. There we go. So you got all your identifiers on this. This is the inside door, right? So it's going to identify all your different components. It's also going to show you the terminals, stuff like that. So yes, pictures are huge. Even as long as I've been doing this, I still take pictures. You know, I always cross things on accident, you know, so I need that reference. And if I don't have the pictures, I got the door, I got the service manual, you know, I got all of that stuff to help me out too. But just for time's sake, you want to be able to put this stuff back where it belongs. And then we got our fan motor that kind of plugs into the middle of the board here. And we disconnect that. So we're pretty much all disconnected at this point. Compressor, fan, all your front Molexes here, all your different harnesses and stuff like that. The last thing you're really going to remove, and again, take a picture, is your field wiring, right? So depending on how many indoor units you have, you're going to remove 2 or 3, your incoming power, get that out of the way, right? And now we're talking 6 screws, right? So I got 1 up here, there's 2 on the inside, 2 on the outside, and then there's 1 back here. Again, you're not going to remember this stuff. That's why you need these service instructions, because there is a step-by-step guide with pictures on how to remove this entire chassis, exactly the way I just described it. So once we do that, we can come in here now, and it is this simple. Just disconnect and pull the whole electrical chassis out, right? So I got the heat sink. You can see all the wires kind of running underneath. The top might be bad to see right now because we got a green screen, so it might screw us up. Yep, yeah, a little bit. So there's your boards. You can see the picture above, so you get an idea on what that looks like. But that's my entire chassis at that point, right? I can now take that back to the shop, get the parts I need, rebuild it. There's even a way to bench test it. So if you're brave and you want to get into it, we don't need anything other than a 220 source and a choke coil, which is something I didn't mention that I did disconnect previously. That's coming in. That'd be the only thing holding you up from pulling this thing out, but our choke coil is needed. And then I could just check DC volts across the terminals, you know, after right from a bench. It's typically how I do it. And I know that that chassis is installed properly. I know I got DC communication. When I go back to the job, I should feel very confident when I plug it in, it's going to work.
So just a good practice is to take a head count. How many connections did you remove? Because eventually you have to put this all back together.
Yep.
And then if you mark a little thing, 14 or something on the chassis somewhere.
Yep.
You can count them back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Not by a job site after 4 months.
Exactly.
And there was that one plug.
Even a model number, it's something that I do. This one's a little smudged on here, but you know, I put the model number on there. Here you go. It's a little better view, but you know, you put the model on there. This way it doesn't get mixed matched in the shop or something like that and go out as a different model. But again, you know, it's a lot easier. You know, I show guys how to pull that out. They're like, oh my God, that's it? Yeah, that's it. You know, now you're not sitting here trying to manipulate your hands to get in positions they shouldn't be, right? You just do it all on a bench, right? A lot easier, a lot cleaner, a lot quicker. So
you got some stand-up tall trucks. You get them off the roof, have the sun.
Yeah.
Look like a gentleman.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So again, that's something I hope that helps. Again, you can find all that information in service instructions, you know, step-by-step guide on how to remove that chassis. You know, anytime we're talking about the electronic components here or any type of board or anything, your fan motors, compressors, you know, it really helps to have a decent multimeter, right? So not just, you know, there are some things we want that meter to do. I think I kind of lacked here on the slides, but before I get into the multimeter, you know, even the videos that you saw, they have their own YouTube channel at this point, right? We love YouTube. Go take a look at Fujitsu's. You're going to find all this information right on that page. You know, take a look at it, watch the video before you go do it. You know, depending on the model, there's going to be a different board configuration. Not every one is set up like this. There might be a couple more screws to remove it, a couple more plugs, right? But for the most part, they're all the same components, just kind of set around a little differently. Go for it.
Someone's just asking if you can point out where the screw locations are.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got the 2 right here on your right-hand side. You got 2 on the inside behind the black foam. There's 1 up here in the middle above the fan guard and 1 back here. It's a little bit harder. It's probably the hardest one to get because it's kind of on an angle. If you have a small little screwdriver, it's a little easy to get to.
And one other is that we will not be going over the bench testing today.
No, you know, the bench test is, not that it's difficult. Liability, yeah. We don't care about liability, come on.
We're not electricians.
Yeah, I mean, the bench test is pretty easy. Like I said, you know, I use a 220 inverter and a choke coil out of an old unit, and that's really it. You know, you're gonna plug all your boards in, you run your inverter right to the, your power, and you're good to go. You're checking DC voltage. So like I said, in order to check that DC voltage though, we need a good meter, right? And not just a good meter, we want to have good batteries, right? So there we go, right on cue, right? So this is a good one maybe to take a screenshot of if you're on a phone. If you're on a computer, take a picture of it with your phone. But this is what our multimeter really needs to be able to do, right? So volts AC 500, DC 600, ohms, right? We're going to use that a lot. I'm not a voltage guy, you know. Yeah, there's times where we might have to check voltage, but I'm not looking, like Anthony said, liability. I am a liability. You know, I don't like, you know, electric. Actually, I respect it. I love electric. I know there's better ways to test components, and ohms is the way to go. So resistance. So you want to have a meter that does up to 6 mega ohms. You need to be able to do a diode check. You know, if you don't know what a diode is, you know, reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you. But diode check is really, that's what our diode bridge is, right? We got 4 diodes in there. If you need to test for communication, well, that's going to be your go-to right there. You need that meter. And the most important one is probably that bottom one, right? It needs to have good batteries. You know, it can, yeah, I did them a year ago. No, you know, if you're going out there and you want accurate readings, you did them a year ago with the meter set in your truck, getting hot, cold all year long, right? So that's going to kill a battery. If you want accurate readings, you know, I mean, I can tell you I change my batteries probably 3 or 4 times a year, if not more. You know, so it's just something that I get used to doing. I don't really leave it in my car. I bring it in the house or keep it in the office, something like that. But, you know, so that's the multimeters. We're going to talk about more tools in a second.
Having more than one meter.
Yeah, even having more than one. You know, one of the things that we are seeing a lot now, when you looking at some of the tech calls, so that's another good point. You know, when you guys are on the phone with tech support, you know, we have access to those phone calls, so we can listen to the conversations you guys are having. So when we're being called out into a field, you know, before I go driving all over God's creation, you know, I want some information. You know, I want to hear what they told you to do, because we're seeing that a lot more. We're getting a little lazy, right? We're being told to do things, but we don't want to listen. And you know, we show up and, okay, did we do this, this, and this? Nobody told me. Well, be careful with that, because we can hear the conversation again. We can see what you were told to do. And we've dealt with that a lot lately. The other thing I just wanted to mention before we get off the boards, I was going to bring a board up here and I totally forgot. But when you get these boards from the, you know, basically from the factory or through your distributor, you know, there's instructions that come with those boards, right? We got to pay attention to them. You know, we've had some boards fail. I've been on a couple personally recently, you know, where boards failed after you installed the system. Well, that diode, it goes to a heat sink, right? That little chip generates so much heat that if it's not insulated, or I should say, if it's not making contact and transferring that heat, you know, properly into that heat sink, you got a couple minutes, seconds, you know, maybe hours, depending on it, but that board's going to burn out eventually. You know, when we ship those boards, or they get shipped from Japan, right, to your distributor, they come with this little piece of pink foam. A little hard to see, take my word for it. It's pink foam. It comes tucked between the board and that chip. That's for shipping purposes, so the chip doesn't bend and break and all that stuff. You know, we need to remove it, right? We've seen them installed with the foam still there. So now we power up the system. That foam acts as an insulator. It keeps the heat all concentrated on that chip and it burns out, right? Fujitsu's not going to warranty a board and when it's sent back and it's still got the foam still in it, right? So worst case, take the foam out before you send it back. But we got to follow the instructions, not just from the unit, but if we're replacing parts and they come with something, we need to pay attention to what that is. So, yes, Anthony.
I gave the answer, but 10-minute discharge time if you're going to disassemble.
Yep, I like 10 minutes. You know, it changes, it seems, with every publication I read, 5-10 minutes. If you got the time, take 15. You know, it's be safe. You know,
First thing you do is kill power. And
yeah, when you kill that power, if you are in a quiet area, you will hear maybe a click. You know, you'll hear some kind of noise come out of the machine, like a relay or a switch, you know, and that's the discharge of that voltage. And it could take 2 minutes, it could take 5. I'd wait 10, you know, like I said, if you got a couple extra minutes and you got to run to the truck and get some stuff, then use that time. Better be safe than sorry.
Question about choke coils. Are they all the same?
They are not all the same. You know, I thought they were, and they are not.
Larger units?
Yeah, when you get to the larger units, it's a bigger choke coil. Can you use a bigger one on a small unit? That's an answer I've never gotten clearly, because I have asked that before.
Try it, let us know.
Yeah. You know, I stick with the part number that you got. You know, I do use one kind of to test all my boards, and I'm using it as a universal, and it hasn't failed me yet. But putting it into operation, I would just use the correct one that comes with it, get the model number and the correct part number. All right, so we talk about multimeters, right? So now we're going to talk about the rest of the tools, right? So, you know, we're doing a lot of training, especially this time of year. We're coming in, we're running our butts off between the 5 of us, spending a lot of different time at different locations, long drive times sometimes. But, you know, if we're coming to training, we're troubleshooting Fujitsu, right? We're servicing the stuff. This isn't, you know, a hobby for you guys, right? This is your career. You know, if it's a hobby, then God bless you. But, you know, for most of us, this is our career. So why not have the right tools? You know, I'm on these job sites where I'm dealing with refrigerant issues. It's not a Fujitsu problem. It's we can't keep the gas in a pipe problem, right? And then we don't have a recovery machine, or there's one recovery machine for the whole company, or, you know, we don't have scales, and we don't have micron gauges or torque wrenches. Well, we shouldn't be. You're not going to be able to do your job properly without, right? The reality is, and if you're going to be servicing and troubleshooting, installing any type of mini split, central air units, any type of refrigerant equipment, right? You need to have all the proper tools, not half of them, all of them, right? There are some differences. There are some, you know, cheaper units than more expensive. You don't have to buy all the most expensive stuff. You know, I hear all the time, my company's not going to pay for it. Well, again, this isn't a hobby. This is your career. You know, those tools are your tools. If you want to be a good technician and a good troubleshooter, and you want to be able to do your job properly, don't worry about the company. You go buy it, right? It's going to pay for itself many, many times over again. You know, so this is something I'm dealing with a lot more, you know, here in trainings. Well, we're teaching just like John and Rob did week 1, right? They taught you best practices. That's what we teach. Best practices is using the right vacuum pump, changing the oil, getting a micron gauge, using a torque wrench to make your connections, getting the right flaring tool, right? If you can't do all of that, then you're not following best practices. I can't teach you any other tricks or shortcuts or any of that stuff. It's not going to get you long. You know, you're going to waste more time and money than what that tool costs, you know, scrambling to make something work, right? So you go back for one leak, you know, you pretty much lost all your profit on the job to begin with. So the cost of that tool and getting the right equipment is going to be, you know, huge. So
investigate, maybe a wholesaler, a manufacturer, do a display day with discount pricing.
Well, I know, you know, we got some good distributors in our neck of the woods here. You know, they always run programs and we do trainings, you know, whether it's for multimeters or whatever it is, they have pretty great, you know, prices to begin with. So, you know, talk to them. You know,
Get to know those manufacturers.
Absolutely. So that's my spiel just on parts, or tools, I should say. You know, but while we're talking about it, you know, like I brought up the refrigerant side of things, you know, we talked today about electrical, right? Communication errors, some tips there on removing this stuff. You know, there could be other problems when we're troubleshooting refrigerant issues, right? So that's another big thing. Refrigerant problems don't always give us error codes. You know, like that was my phone call yesterday, late in the day. Here's my gauge pressure and here's my error code, discharge temperature error. Yeah, that's a refrigerant issue, you know, and it's like deer in headlights at that point. What do you mean? Well, discharge temperature sensor is basically saying that the compressor is getting too hot, right? It's getting too hot because there's not enough refrigerant to keep it cool. It gets a certain condition, let's call it 230 degrees, twice in a 24-hour period, and you get an error code. 9 times out of 9, I get a discharge error. That's going to be related to refrigerant. So again, going back to using the right tools, finding where the leak is. We can't just add refrigerant and hope it's going to go away. You got another one in?
Well, I was going to say maybe we should add to that picture for tools.
Yep.
Paper. Honestly, to write things down.
Oh, absolutely. Pictures, your phone, you know, anything, you know, just
start documenting the information in your, you know, finding.
Yeah. Yep. So I saw a little thing there from Gary, asked about the choke coil, right? So the clearest answer I've gotten is it basically regulates, I guess the power through the compressor, right? Is what it's doing, or through the machine itself. So the choke coil's there, whether it's resistance or whatever it does, I cannot get it clear, so I'm not going to even lie to you. That's as clear as I've got, right? So hopefully that helps, Gary. If anything, I'll poke and probe some more, and we'll send you an email. We'll be in touch. Yeah, right. All right, so that's tools. I talked about refrigerant issues, right? We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Hopefully week 1 should have cleared up most of those questions as far as refrigerants, leaks, making the proper connections, all of that stuff. The other issues we get, again, we're talking about, complaints and problems, errors, stuff like that. They're not always going to be electrical or refrigerant related. They could be application related. I mean by application, it's how that unit got installed, right? I've had application issues where, I'm getting 3 years down the road, all of a sudden we got a coil that's freezing up when the other unit runs, and the wires was swapped back and forth. That could be a pain in the neck to kind of troubleshoot, but those are issues we do see. We also have systems that are not installed in the right place, right? So maybe they're giving us, they're blowing air, we got thermistor issues, and we're starting to play with function codes, right? We get into the backside of a remote control, and we can get in there and maybe fix some of those problems. But again, understanding what that complaint is, investigating it, I always like to break it down into 3 different ways, right? When I talk about my problems, they're either going to be electric related, they're going to be refrigerant related, or maybe it's just a performance problem, right? The room doesn't get as cool, the humidity issues, fans, stuff like that. So these are all things, when you break down what that problem is, it kind of gives you a direction on which way to go, because not all problems or complaints are going to generate an error code. So again, that's where I think that we'll go back to the manuals, the service instructions, and understanding how a system's supposed to run. Utilizing our forced cooling mode, it's a test run button, right? Every unit can go into a test run. If we understand what it's supposed to sound like and how it's operating, and is the fan kicking up, is the compressor making it through its full range, based on that temperature day, if I can run and test run, then I should be able to run in any other mode, right? So, understanding that is huge. And I think our friend Artie over there in Fujitsu over in Pinebrook, no, where are they now? Yeah, Pinebrook.
Yep.
He does a good job at kind of showing, let's put it in test run, and let's just everybody just shut up and listen, and you kind of listen to this machine go through its paces, and you understand these tiers of the compressor. And once you understand and what it's supposed to sound like, let me tell you, that 5 minutes, we'll call it, of listening, just clears up so much, just in the field. When you understand how it's supposed to run, it makes a huge difference when it comes down to figuring out if that problem is, maybe it's a misunderstanding of how the system's supposed to work. I can't tell you how many of those issues we run into, right?
Yep. Just real quick, I see the regulator. It seems to come up, regulators and what they go up to, and what we require for pressure testing. So
absolutely.
Just confirm that your regulator can go to higher pressures.
Yeah, throw it in there. Where you guys noticed from week 1, if you were with us, but what are we pressure testing at? If we're dealing with performance issue, refrigerant issues, and we lost some gas, what are we pressure testing our systems to? I see. Is that we got Gary again?
They did switches in the 30.
Okay. Oh, I get what you're saying. So Gary, yeah, there are some dip switches. I mean, typically when you look at the H model, the 36, so AOU, that's our extra low temperature heating model, or our 45, there are some dip switches for test run where we can go into cooling, or we can do test run maybe in heating mode.
You're saying cooling only?
Cooling only.
That might be a function setting.
Well, yeah, that's okay. I got you. Yeah, so that's a difference. So that's basically the indoor unit. Where actually those function settings, when we do a function setting, that's for the indoor unit. So that's the indoor unit is what gives information to the outdoor. So any of those function codes we're going to find in our installation manual of our indoor model. Do we have a forced cooling? Yeah, that's a great question. Or make it a cooling only piece of equipment. I think that's a huge benefit to what Fujitsu is compared to some of our competitors. We were made aware maybe a couple years ago. We're seeing a lot of applications where they want to put mini splits in pool houses out on the east end of Long Island, right? These little I guess mini mansions have these pool houses where they're putting
Not
in,
many.
yeah, they're not many. I shouldn't use that word, but they're putting in mini splits. But the code requirement now, or the code enforcement, is coming through and saying, well, if this thing can provide heat, then you can't use it. It's got to be a cooling only piece of equipment. For a lot of our competitors, they've had to go and swap out equipment. For us, it's a function code. We can make it a cooling only piece of equipment, or we can make it a heating only piece of equipment. So it's that is a bulletin, and you should be able to find that on our help center, if anything.
That's correct.
So
I was going to say, most of any function settings,
yeah,
that particular one isn't so readily available in all the installation manuals.
yeah, it might just be a service bulletin for you.
Board of Design and Technical, yeah, it's a separate one, like Rick is saying, it's in the bulletin.
Yep. All right, so we went through tools, right? So we got most of them up there. You know, again, I'm just mentioning on a refrigerant side, because I know that's a lot of our troubleshooting sometimes is, you know, leaks in a system. You know, even, you know, maybe we're creating our own, and you might have heard this, you've been on a couple of our webinars before, and I talk about the hoses, right? I'm a little probe guy, right? I don't like hoses, I like utilize, and I had one around here, here it goes right in front of me, right? That's what I use, right? I can make a manifold if I had to charge a system, you know, fairly quickly. But hoses in a system, basically what they're doing is robbing the refrigerant from the system. If I'm going on a maintenance and I'm hooking up a hose to this system and there's no refrigerant in that hose, guess what? I just took 3 ounces out every single time I hooked that hose up. 1, 2, 3 years into a system, you know, operation, you know, now I've pulled out 9 ounces of refrigerant. We might start to have some performance issues here. We might be chasing some leaks we don't have, right? So, you know, if you are hooking up hoses, pre-fill them, right? Just purge some refrigerant through your hoses so it's in there. So when you do hook up, you're not taking an ounce, right? So those are just some little tips there on a refrigerant side. Are we looking questions-wise? We're looking good still?
One just came in. Can you pump down the system without it throwing an error code?
Yeah, you could. There are some models that actually have a pump down mode. 45 being one, where it'll give you the directions right on the inside of the door. So it is model dependent. Can you do it on a regular unit? I've seen some guys do it. You know, you run it down, you know, because we don't have a low pressure switch per se. We have 2 high pressure switches that are there, but the unit will shut down at a low point. But you can close down your valves, run it for a few. I'm not a big fan of that, you know, especially with the little amount of refrigerant we do take in those smaller units. You know, just reclaim it, you know, pull the refrigerant out, do what you got to do, and then recharge it. You know, that's going to be your best bet every time. Problem is, you pump it down, you don't know how much of the refrigerant's there and how much you're still pulling out. So it's a lot easier just to reclaim or recover, whatever you want to call it. All right. So again, just a little review here. You know, there's a picture. That's that handout we keep talking about. So that's your troubleshooting side. Again, yes, the pictures change. I don't know if anybody commented on it, but we did have some. We got some rebranding going on in the Fujitsu world. So no more Halcyon in our world. It's going to be AirStage for everything. It's just a matter of our JVH series and all that. So you'll see that coming. Pay attention, October 3rd. There'll be a good announcement. But these are the 2 websites, right? So take a screenshot of it, download that handout, because you'll have little QR codes there for both of them. So you'll be able to access them. Huge resources, right? I spend 90% of my time on connecting on our help center at Zendesk, right? So, you know, those 2 alone, there's really not one problem you're not going to be able to fix. If we just utilize the tools, that's really what it is. You know, I was saying something, you know, the most important tool is not you picking up the phone and calling somebody, hey, what do I do? The tool is yourself. You know, you have access to all of this stuff. You're just not using it, right? So save yourself the time. You know, we're still there to confirm. You know, send us a text message, phone calls, whatever. Yeah, whatever you need. I believe there's a line sheet in your handouts too with the contacts on there. So be able to get myself and Anthony's direct line, John, Jim, Rob, if you're in the New Jersey area or lower New York. So please, you know, grab that stuff before you go today. So as these questions are coming in, you know, please, you know, now's the time. We've got a few more minutes here. So throw it out. It's an open session. Got a couple things coming in. I see, Ann, huh?
Well, the guy was asking about the boards, webinars, or certifications for learning more about the boards.
Yeah, we do classes, contact your distributor,
Right.
Contact your distributor. We do some hands-on stuff, we like to do troubleshooting of boards, so that is a class.
Mark, I have a question to your question. Homeowner contact us. In theory, no.
Yeah.
We're pretty good with our questions and investigating that level in which
absolutely.
we give support to.
Yeah, do we have conversations with homeowners? Unfortunately, all the time, but a lot of them end with, you need a contractor. Typically, we send them to, I would say we send them to the contractor locator on the Fujitsu General website. So they're going to pick somebody. So that could help you or hurt you. If you're not an elite contractor, they might not even see you on the list. So there are some added benefits of getting that elite status. If you're not familiar with that, that information is on Connect. And we can also, we can help you with that too. But yeah, I mean, we do get homeowners that do call us. And
I think Mark is a homeowner.
Okay.
So I'd like to know how he got to our webinar.
Yeah, I've seen Mark on there before.
It would just be interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna, we are not service techs, we're manufacturers reps,
Listen, I believe that outside our footprint here in New York, New Jersey, things get a little sparse, it's a little spread out, people are talented.
Yep.
But there is a level in which, as a rep, how low do we start providing electrical connections? And there's, again, that word liability.
Absolutely.
So.
Yep. Best way
the trades
to call a contractor.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking clear, looking good.
I like what I see.
All right, well, you got a few minutes, so if you got any questions, please throw them in there. Again, you guys have been on these webinars. We're 3 weeks in now. We're finishing up in a few minutes here. We're week 3. Next week, we will have, I believe, Mr. Jim DePalma will be doing some low voltage wiring training. So that's always a great class. Does pertain to a lot of hydronics and stuff like that. So that's always a favorite of mine. So we got a couple good ones coming up. We also, if you don't know where to get this, right, we get the emails going out there. You'll find it on our social media, again, on the Wales Darby IG page. You'll find it on walesdarby.com. It's probably your best source. It's going to get you the direct links to register for these classes. So go take a look. We also have, I'm going to plug a little event we got here in New York. If you're in the area, October 12th, feel free to come down, spend a day at Wales Darby there in Islandia on the Express Drive. We got some directions there. We would prefer some registration. There's a QR code. There's also a little link you can see there. If you have our contact info, you can just send us a text too, and we'll throw you on the list. We're gonna do a little breakfast and lunch, have some training throughout the day. This is our, high efficiency, heating expo for 2022. We're gonna have some tents set up out there in the parking lot, just showcasing some of our new products. A lot of our manufacturers will be on site, so if you have questions, you want to discuss certain issues, or maybe some things you'd like to see, they're always listening. So we got some demo trucks coming in for electro boilers. NTI
Jennifer Anderson's going to be there.
Jennifer Anderson, nice.
Yeah.
I'll be there. We'll have our truck as well. We got Space Pack. We got some hosts coming in there, or some of our contacts. We got one big wig, right? We got the Joel, owner of Central Therm Venting, coming down to spend a day with us. So it's a good opportunity to hang out with him. We're gonna have some fun with some contests there, put together some piping. Fastest guy, we might get a nice little prize to go home with. Whatever, you can see the manufacturers on the right hand side there. That we
grilled cheese with bacon.
Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to figure out the food. Grilled cheese with bacon. All right.
One big piece. Sorry, I'll cut it up.
Love it. All right. Well, I don't see any more.
October 12th, be there.
Yes, October 12th. That is in your handouts too. So
Long Island, MacArthur is only 10 minutes away. You can fly in.
Yeah. Fly
lunch. We'll buy you lunch.
Yeah, send a bill to Anthony. All good. All good. All right. Well, with that, I hope this helped you guys a little bit, helped you get some resources, get some information there, maybe a couple little tips. Again, this is recorded. It will be out there in the next couple days for your access. So with that, I'm going to say enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you next week. Anything else, Ant?
We're good. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Have a great day.